Have you ever felt like you're holding on by a thread, smiling on the outside but internally breaking into pieces, wondering if Allah hears you at all? Like you're surrounded by ayat of the Qur'an, yet the one thing your heart desperately longs for, hope, still feels out of reach. This is not a coincidence, because hidden in the Qur'an, there is a message of hope that very few people talk about, a hope so subtle, so intimate, that it often goes unnoticed, even by those who recite its verses daily. And yet, this quiet promise has the power to heal the deepest wounds of your soul. You see, most people look into the Qur'an searching for rules, answers, obligations. But what if you've been missing the one thing your heart truly needed all along? What if buried within these divine words is a kind of hope that speaks directly to your silent prayers, your unspoken pain, your sleepless nights? What if this sacred book was always whispering, "I see you, I haven't forgotten you"? This is not the hope you find on Instagram quotes. It's not the kind that comes with cliches like, "Stay positive" or "Everything happens for a reason." No, this is divine, personal, hidden, a sacred thread that connects your pain with the stories of the prophets, with the raw human struggles of Maryam, Musa, Yusuf, and Ayub. These are not just historical figures. They are emotional mirrors of your own journey. Their stories hold revelations that the world rarely discusses. And yet, they were preserved for you, because when Allah revealed the Qur'an, He didn't only send a book of laws, He sent a message for broken hearts, a love letter for those who cry in secret, a map for the lost, the ashamed, the tired, the anxious, the ones barely holding on. And this is where it begins. In this video, you will discover what the hidden hope in the Qur'an that few talk about truly is. You'll be taken through 10 emotional doors, each one connected to a prophet's pain, each one opening a new window to healing. With every story, you'll feel yourself reflected. With every verse, you'll feel seen. And with every word, you'll feel Allah's mercy reaching you, softly, powerfully, and exactly when you need it most. But before we reveal it, you must first feel it. You must see why this message has been kept silent in so many hearts for so long, because only then will you be ready to receive it. Take a deep breath and say, Bismillah. Let your heart slow down, your shoulders drop, and your soul open, because what you're about to witness may be the answer to a dua you once whispered in the middle of the night. You're not here by accident. Allah brought you to this moment for a reason. Perhaps it's because He heard your silent cries. Perhaps this is His response. Before we go deeper, I want you to pause and write in the comments, "I trust Allah, even when I don't understand His plan." Let it be your act of faith, your public whisper to the heavens. And if this message already touches your heart, then leave a like, not just for us, but for the thousands of souls this video might reach through your click. That one click could be a form of sadaqah jariyah, a ripple of mercy spreading beyond what you can see. And if you're searching for something deeper, for reminders that calm your anxiety, for words from the Qur'an that feel like they were sent just for you, then this is your space. Subscribe. You are not alone here. This is more than a channel. It's a home for hearts that still believe. But stay with me, because Allah revealed something astonishing in the Qur'an that few have truly understood. And before this video ends, you'll see how this divine hope speaks directly to you. So take another breath, open your heart, and prepare yourself. What comes next could shift the way you see your pain forever. The sand was burning under their feet, the sky painted with the dust of panic, and behind them, the roar of an army determined to destroy every last soul. Imagine the weight in those moments. Mothers clutching their children, elders gasping for breath as they stumbled forward, young men and women crying out in desperation. And in front of them, stretching endlessly, was the sea. No bridge, no boat, no escape. Only the water, vast and merciless. And behind them, Pharaoh's soldiers closing in. Every heart pounded with the same question, is this the end? Can you picture the silence that must have fallen in those seconds? The kind of silence that carries the sound of despair more loudly than screams. And there at the front stood Prophet Musa, chosen by Allah yet human like us, faced with the impossible. Imagine his people's eyes fixed on him, expecting a miracle he could not see, waiting for salvation that seemed invisible. And then, with the courage of faith that only comes from absolute trust, Musa spoke the words that have echoed through centuries. Indeed, my Lord is with me. He will guide me through. Surah Ash-Shu'ara 6:62. Stop for a moment and let those words sink into you. He did not say, I know how we will be saved. He did not say, I have the solution. He simply declared, my Lord is with me. And this is the hidden hope of the Qur'an that so few speak about. That in your most terrifying moments, when every path looks closed, Allah Himself is enough. Not the details, not the plan, not the outcome, but His presence. Think of your own life. How many times have you felt trapped between your own Pharaoh and the sea? Maybe it was the crushing weight of debt, the suffocating fear of losing your job, or the unbearable thought of a diagnosis that changes everything. Maybe it was heartbreak that left you unable to breathe, or the fear of an uncertain tomorrow that keeps you awake at night. Isn't that the same paralysis? The same desperation? Anxiety about the future that tells you there's no way out? And yet, if you look closely, the Qur'an is whispering the same truth Musa proclaimed. Your Lord is with you. But here's the raw question that pierces deeper than we often dare to admit. Do you really believe that? Or do you only say it with your tongue, while your heart sinks further into despair? Many people call anxiety a weakness of faith, but what if that's a lie you've been fed? What if your anxiety is not proof of weak faith, but proof that Allah is pushing you to discover the kind of trust Musa held onto in that very moment? The hidden hope of the Qur'an is that Allah never leaves you in front of the sea without already preparing the path beneath it. When Musa raised his staff and the water split into towering walls, the impossible became reality. That sea was not just a body of water. It was the embodiment of every fear, every closed door, every obstacle you face today. And Allah made a way through it. Not around it, not away from it, through it. Think about that, because maybe the future you fear is not meant to be erased. Maybe it's meant to be transformed by Allah's mercy right in front of your eyes. Close your eyes for a second and breathe. Picture the waves parting. Picture yourself stepping onto dry ground where you thought you would drown. Feel the relief flood your chest. That is what happens when you trust the one who writes every destiny. The hidden hope in the Qur'an is not just comfort, it is transformation. It is the reminder that no matter how much your mind screams, there is no way out. Allah's decree whispers, walk forward. And I want you to do something powerful right now. Write in the comments, I trust Allah even when I see no way out. Don't let it stay locked in your heart. Declare it. Make it your testimony. Let others read your words and feel courage rise in them too. Your comment is not just text. It is your act of defiance against fear, your way of telling anxiety, you will not own me because Allah owns my future. This isn't just about Musa's story. It's about you, about that one burden you've been carrying that feels unbearable. Maybe you've whispered to yourself, I can't keep doing this. Maybe you've wondered if Allah is punishing you with uncertainty. But here's the twist. What if that anxiety is not punishment at all? What if it is your Red Sea moment, the point where Allah strips away every illusion of control so you can discover what real tawakkul feels like? What if your sleepless nights are actually the stage for a miracle you can't yet imagine? Because the truth is this, when Allah writes qadr, He doesn't just write your pain, He writes the way out. The decree you fear is not incomplete. The sea and the escape are both part of the same plan. And once you realize that, you will stop trying to figure out the how and start trusting the who. So the next time fear grips your chest and the future feels like a dark, endless ocean, remember this scene. Remember Musa's words. Remember the hidden hope buried in that ayah. And remember that the very moment you feel trapped may be the exact moment Allah is preparing to show you a miracle. But here is where it gets even more astonishing, because what if the sea doesn't part right away? What if the miracle you're waiting for is delayed? Does that mean Allah has abandoned you? Or does it mean He is teaching you something deeper about patience, resilience, and His timing? The story of Musa shows us that Allah's help comes precisely when it's meant to. Not earlier, not later, but at the perfect second when every heart finally turns completely to Him. Let that truth sink into you. Your future is not in the hands of bosses, banks, doctors, or even enemies. Your future is held by the same one who split the sea, and He has already written your path. All He asks is that you walk forward in trust, even when your eyes can't see where the ground is. And here's the part that might shake everything you've been told. Anxiety doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're human. And the Qur'an is proof that even the greatest of Allah's prophets faced it. What set them apart was not the absence of fear. but their decision to place that fear in Allah's hands. So let your anxiety become the rope that ties you to Him. Let your uncertainty become the prayer that keeps you close. Because what happened at the sea wasn't just history, it was prophecy. It was Allah saying to every believer who would ever feel trapped, I am with you. I will guide you through. And if you let that truth live in your heart, no fear will ever drown you again. And yet this is only the beginning, because hidden in the Qur'an are other promises, other revelations that touch wounds even deeper than fear of the future. What if I told you that the guilt of your past, the heaviness of your mistakes, carries its own secret door to mercy that most people never talk about? What happens when your shame becomes the place Allah meets you with forgiveness? The answer will change everything you thought you knew about hope. Darkness. Complete, suffocating, endless darkness. The waves crashed above him, swallowing every glimmer of light, while the walls of a living creature's belly pressed against his body. Prophet Yunus found himself in a prison no human could escape, locked in 3 layers of darkness. The darkness of the night, the darkness of the sea, and the darkness of the whale. Can you imagine that moment? Alone, no one to hear his voice, no one to see his pain, no chance of escape by human means. That is the kind of isolation and regret that can crush a soul. But it wasn't only fear, it was guilt. Guilt for walking away from his mission, guilt for his impatience, guilt for the feeling that he had failed. Have you ever been in that place? Not inside a whale, but inside your own shame, trapped in a memory of what you did, a choice you regret, a sin you cannot erase, surrounded by darkness that whispers, you are beyond saving. And yet, from the depths of that suffocating prison, Yunus raised his voice in the most powerful cry ever uttered, La ilaha illa anta subhanaka, inni kuntu minaz zalimin. There is no deity except you, exalted are you. Indeed, I have been of the wrongdoers. Surah Al-Anbiya in 21:87. It was not a long speech, not a carefully crafted prayer. It was a surrender, a confession, a return, and it shattered the walls of hopelessness. Allah, in His mercy, responded to that plea, just as He promised He would for anyone who calls upon Him with sincerity. The Qur'an reminds us, so we responded to Him and saved him from distress, and thus do we save the believers. This is where so many of us miss the hidden hope buried in the Qur'an. We think guilt means the end. We think sin disqualifies us from Allah's mercy. We think mistakes make us unworthy of His love. But what if that's the biggest lie Shaitan feeds you? What if your guilt is not proof of Allah's rejection, but proof that your heart is still alive? The difference between despair and salvation is not perfection. It's the direction you turn when you feel broken. Yunus turned inward and then upward. That is why his story is not about punishment, but about rescue. How many of us carry invisible prisons every day? Maybe your whale is the sin no one knows about, the one you cry over in secret. Maybe it's the abortion, the affair, the addiction, the word you said in anger, the salah you abandoned, the years you lost to heedlessness. You replay it in your mind like waves crashing above your head, and you wonder, can Allah still forgive me? And the Quran answers with the story of Yunus. Yes, not only can He forgive, but He can transform that guilt into a ladder back to Him. But here comes the piercing question. Do you really believe that Allah's mercy is greater than your sin? Or do you secretly believe your mistake is stronger than His forgiveness? Because that belief itself can be a prison darker than the whale. When Yunus cried out, he didn't bargain with Allah. He didn't try to excuse himself. He admitted, I was of the wrongdoers. And that is exactly why Allah responded. Because the hidden hope in these words is not in being flawless, but in being honest. And this is where I want you to step into the story. Write in the comments, I turn back to Allah no matter what I've done. Don't keep it inside. Let your comment be your testimony, your declaration that shame will not keep you chained, that guilt will not silence your soul. Every letter you type could be the beginning of your freedom, the very proof that Allah is pulling you out of darkness. Close your eyes and breathe for a moment. Picture yourself inside that darkness, the regrets, the sins, the things you wish no one would ever find out. And now picture light breaking through, not because you earned it, but because Allah willed it. Feel the relief of being pulled out, carried to the shore, given another chance. That's what Tawbah is. That's what the Quran promises. That's the hope people overlook, but it is written for you. But let's go deeper. What if guilt is not meant to be erased quickly? What if it lingers not to torture you, but to remind you of your need for Allah? Have you ever thought about why Allah didn't free Yunus the instant he was swallowed? Because sometimes the prison is the cure. Sometimes the darkness is the womb of transformation. Without that confinement, without that moment of despair, Yunus might never have cried with such sincerity, and without your guilt, you might never have turned back with such brokenness. Brokenness before Allah is not a curse, it is the key to intimacy. So maybe the reason you still feel the sting of your past is because Allah loves the sound of your repentance. Maybe your tears are not a sign of rejection, but of acceptance. Maybe every time you whisper Astaghfirullah, the angels are recording not your failure, but your closeness to Him. What if you saw your guilt differently? Not as a chain, but as a rope, pulling you back toward Allah's mercy. And here comes the disruptive truth. Many people will tell you time heals everything. But does it really? If time healed sin, no one would need forgiveness. Time only hides wounds, it doesn't cure them. The only true healing is in turning back to the one who forgives. And that's why this hope hidden in the Quran is unlike any other, because it doesn't ask you to wait for years, it asks you to call upon Him right now, sincerely, truthfully, and He promises to respond. So next, time your past screams in your ear, remember Yunus in the whale. Remember that his cry became a timeless formula of hope, and ask yourself, what if Allah allowed you to fall so that you could rise closer to Him? What if your worst mistake is the doorway to your greatest transformation? But hold on, this isn't the end of the hidden treasures within the Quran, because if guilt can be turned into hope, what about the pain of feeling utterly abandoned, rejected, unseen? What about when the people you love turn their backs on you, when society leaves you alone, when even family doesn't understand you? Could it be that Allah revealed a story for that too? One that carries a secret few people truly see? The air was heavy with silence, broken only by the sound of her sobs. Maryam sat alone beneath the palm tree, her body trembling, her heart overwhelmed with fear and shame. She was young, innocent, pure, and yet the weight of carrying a child without a man pressed upon her like a mountain. Can you imagine her thoughts in that moment? The whispers of what people would say, the judgment, the rejection, the loneliness of being abandoned by society. She cried out, wishing she had never been born, wishing she could disappear into the earth itself. Have you ever felt that? That deep ache of being unseen, misunderstood, cast aside by those who should have stood with you. The Quran tells us that in her lowest point, when despair consumed her, a voice called out, "Do not grieve, your Lord has provided beneath you a stream." Surah Maryam 19:24. In the very moment she thought she was forgotten, Allah reminded her she was cared for. How many of us are living that same moment today? Feeling abandoned in our marriages, betrayed by friends, left behind by family, isolated in a world that doesn't seem to notice when we're breaking. We walk through crowded rooms, but feel invisible. We post smiles online, but cry when no one is watching. We wonder, does anyone see me? And the Quran whispers back, Allah does. Just as He heard Maryam's tears beneath that palm tree, He hears yours. Just as He provided for her in a way no one else could, He is providing for you in ways you may not even see. The hidden hope in this story is not only about miracles of birth, but miracles of the heart, that in your deepest loneliness, Allah is closer than those who abandoned you. But here's the question that unsettles so many. Do you truly believe that Allah's nearness is enough? Because many of us crave human validation so deeply that we forget the only validation that matters is His. Society will judge you, people will leave you, but Allah never walks away. What if your isolation is not proof of His absence, but proof of His attention? What if He removes people so that you will finally look up instead of around? Think about Maryam again, alone, exhausted, trembling in pain, and then Allah commands the palm tree to provide dates, the ground to provide water. Out of nothing, provision came. Isn't that the most powerful reminder? That you don't need a crowd to survive. You only need Allah. And sometimes He empties your circle so that He can fill your soul. And I want you to take a step of courage right now. Write in the comments, Allah is enough for me even if the world leaves me. Let those words break the silence of your loneliness. And if this message touched your heart, leave a like on this video as your act of sadaqah jariyah, because by doing so, you help spread hope to someone else who feels abandoned. And don't stop there. Share this video with a friend who might be hiding their pain. You could be the reason someone remembers that Allah still cares. And if you long for reminders like this, join this community by subscribing. Here you are not alone. You belong with hearts that search for Allah together. Breathe deeply for a moment. Feel the comfort of knowing you are never unseen. Imagine Allah whispering to your heart the way He comforted Maryam. Do not grieve. Imagine provision waiting just beyond the edge of your despair. What if your tears today are watering the seeds of tomorrow's blessings? What if your loneliness is the soil where faith will grow strongest? And here comes the disruptive truth. Being alone is not always punishment. Sometimes it is preparation. Maryam's solitude was not abandonment. It was the stage for one of the greatest miracles in human history. Could it be that your solitude is also preparing you for something greater than you can imagine? Could it be that your heartbreak, your rejection, your silence are all shaping you into someone who will witness Allah's mercy in a way others never will? So the next time you feel invisible, remember Maryam beneath the palm tree. Remember that Allah's comfort found her when no one else was there, and let that truth settle into your bones. You are never truly alone. The one who created you is always with you, always listening, always providing. But don't stop here, because loneliness is not the only wound Allah speaks to in the Quran. There is another ache, one that digs even deeper, the fear of not being good enough, of feeling unworthy, of doubting whether you have what it takes to stand tall. And hidden in another story is a secret that could change the way you see your own worth forever. Musa stood trembling, not before the Red Sea this time, but before Pharaoh's court, his heart beating against his chest like a war drum. He had been chosen to confront the most arrogant tyrant on earth, yet he felt unworthy, small, inadequate. His tongue stumbled, his words tangled, and the weight of his stutter pressed heavily on him. Can you imagine the fear? To know the truth yet doubt your own ability to speak it. To feel that Allah entrusted you with a mission, but inside you whisper, "Why me? I'm not good enough." Musa raised his hands and poured out the most human of prayers. "My Lord, expand for me my chest, and ease for me my task, and untie the knot from my tongue so that they may understand my speech." Surah Taha 20-25-28. In those words lies one of the most hidden treasures of the Quran, that even a prophet of Allah felt insecure, yet his weakness did not disqualify him from greatness. How many of us today live under the crushing belief that we are not enough, not smart enough, not strong enough, not religious enough, not confident enough? We shrink in front of opportunities because we fear failing. We remain silent when we should speak because we fear being judged. We see others succeeding and assume that Allah chooses only the flawless, the eloquent, the perfect. But Musa's story destroys that illusion. The hidden hope in this verse is that Allah does not require perfection. He requires sincerity. The same mouth that stuttered delivered words that shook an empire. Think of your own life. How many dreams have you buried because you believed your flaws made you unworthy? How many times have you told yourself, "I can't, I'm not capable, I'll never measure up"? And what if that inner voice is not the truth, but the very barrier Allah wants you to break through? What if your weakness is not a curse, but the canvas where His power shines? Musa didn't cure his own speech. Allah gave him Harun as support and placed His words on Musa's tongue. That is the secret of tawakkul, to accept your limits and let Allah's strength complete you. But let me ask you this, do you truly believe Allah cannot use you because of your flaws? Or is it that you have believed the lie that worth is defined by worldly measures? Society tells you confidence is everything. The Quran tells you sincerity is everything. Society tells you eloquence is power. The Quran shows you that humility is power. Musa's stutter was not erased to make him worthy. He was worthy despite it. That is the miracle. So here's the reflection. What if the very thing you hate about yourself, your voice, your scars, your past, your brokenness, is the very thing Allah will use to bring light to others? What if He chose you not despite your weakness, but because of it? Because when you act from a place of humility, you show the world that victory belongs only to Him. And I want you to take a bold step of faith right now. Write in the comments, "I am enough with Allah by my side." Let this be your public declaration that your insecurities will no longer silence you. Don't let shame or self-doubt own your voice. Type it as an act of faith. If you've ever felt unworthy, let this be the moment you reclaim your worth through Allah. Breathe deeply and imagine Musa, his voice shaking, his chest tight, standing before Pharaoh. And then imagine Allah filling his heart with courage, strengthening his resolve, turning weakness into strength. That same transformation is available to you. You do not need to be flawless to be chosen. You do not need to be eloquent to be heard. You only need to trust that Allah is with you. And here's the disruptive truth that might challenge everything you've been told. Weakness does not disqualify you from Allah's mercy. Arrogance does. Insecurity is not the opposite of faith. It can be the birthplace of faith when it drives you to call upon Him. That is the hidden hope the Qur'an plants in your soul, that your trembling can become testimony, your stutter can become strength, your smallness can become greatness, when Allah is the one you lean on. So the next time you whisper to yourself, "I'm not good enough," remember Musa's prayer. Remember that even prophets struggled with self-doubt, and yet Allah chose them not because they were perfect, but because they relied on Him. Let that truth set you free from the prison of comparison and fear. Because if Allah can raise a man with a stutter to confront the greatest tyrant, what can He do with you if you trust Him? But this is not the only hidden comfort waiting in the Qur'an. Because if insecurity can be transformed into strength, what about sadness that never seems to end? What about grief that lingers for years and feels like it will never let go? Could it be that Allah preserved a story for that too? One that reveals how even endless sorrow can lead to the sweetest form of closeness to Him. The nights were long for Yaqub. His sons filled the house with noise, but the one voice he longed to hear had been stolen from him. Yusuf was gone, and though his other children tried to console him, he felt the emptiness claw at his chest day after day. The Qur'an tells us he cried until his eyes went white with grief. This was not a passing sadness. It was a sorrow that dug its roots deep into his soul, a pain that refused to leave. He said with trembling honesty, "I only complain of my suffering and my grief to Allah." Surah Yusuf 12:86. These words hold a hidden hope for every heart drowning in sadness. That grief is not weakness, nor is it a sign of lost faith. Even a prophet cried, even a prophet broke down, even a prophet ached with despair. But he directed it to Allah, not to the world. How many of us carry that same grief today? The loss of someone we loved more than life itself, a dream that slipped through our fingers, years of depression that medicine cannot heal. We live in a world that tells us to hide our tears, to numb our pain, to smile through the ache. But what if sadness is not meant to be hidden? What if tears are not shameful, but sacred? The hidden comfort of this verse is that your sadness belongs with Allah. He is the one who gave you the capacity to feel deeply, and He is the only one who can carry it fully. Think about this. When you feel broken, society often says, "Time heals all wounds." But does it? Yaqub lived years without Yusuf, and still his heart bled. Time didn't erase his grief, faith sustained it. So maybe the truth is that time doesn't heal, Allah heals. And if your sadness has lasted longer than you thought it would, perhaps it is because Allah wants you to keep returning to Him again and again until your soul learns that His presence is the only place grief can rest. But let me ask you directly, do you believe your sadness is a sign of failure? Or do you see it as an invitation from Allah to sit closer to Him? The Prophet Yaqub teaches us that pain is not something to escape from, but something to surrender to Allah. What if your tears are not proof of Allah's punishment, but proof of His closeness? What if your broken heart is the very key to unlocking intimacy with Him? Close your eyes for a moment and picture Yaqub, his beard soaked with tears, his body shaking from weeping. And then imagine him lifting his gaze and whispering, "I only complain to Allah. No one else may understand. No one else may care. But Allah listens, Allah responds, and Allah turns pain into patience and patience into paradise." I want you to take a step of courage right now. Write in the comments, "My grief belongs to Allah alone." Let it be your act of faith, your declaration that even if no one else understands your pain, He does. By typing it, you're saying you refuse to carry the weight alone. You are handing it over to the one who has always held your heart. So the next time sadness overwhelms you, don't silence your tears. Don't pretend to be strong in front of the world. Be strong in front of Allah by being honest with Him. Cry to Him. Tell Him the truth of your heart. Let your grief pour out in sujood, in whispers before sleep, in dua that trembles from your lips. Because every tear shed for Him is recorded, every ache is known, every sigh is heard. And here's the disruptive truth. Sadness is not the enemy of faith. It can be the pathway to deeper faith. The very thing you think is breaking, you might be the thing that's building you. Yaqub's grief seemed endless, but it was the rope that tied him firmly to Allah until the day relief came. And relief always comes, because Allah has promised, indeed, with hardship comes ease. So if your soul is heavy, if your nights are restless, if your heart feels hollow, let this story anchor you. You are not less faithful because you cry. You are not weak because you feel sorrow. You are human, and you are loved by Allah, who created your heart to seek Him most in moments of pain. But sadness is not the only wound addressed by the Qur'an. There is another form of suffering, one that burns with injustice and betrayal, one that whispers that patience is useless and goodness forgotten. And within that story lies another secret, another hidden mercy that might change everything you thought about waiting and hope. Yusuf sat in the darkness of the prison cell, the cold stone walls surrounding him like a cage of injustice. He had been betrayed by his own brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused, and now forgotten behind iron bars. Imagine the weight of that moment. Years of life stolen, reputation destroyed, freedom denied, and all because of lies. How many of us have felt a shadow of that pain? Treated unfairly at work, slandered by people who twisted our intentions, trapped in systems where the powerful crush the innocent. Hopelessness creeps in, whispering, no one sees, no one cares, no justice will ever come. Yet the Qur'an gives us a hidden mercy in Yusuf's story. Indeed, whoever fears Allah and is patient, then indeed Allah does not allow the reward of the doers of good to be lost. Surah Yusuf 12:90. This is the reminder that injustice may prevail in the courts of men, but never in the court of Allah. Think about how difficult that must have been for Yusuf. He could have cursed his fate, hardened his heart, given up on goodness, but he didn't. He remained patient, loyal to Allah, and dignified even when the world stripped him of his rights. Isn't that the hardest test? To continue being good when others do evil to you, to keep fearing Allah when others take advantage of your silence, to keep faith when the system seems broken, beyond repair. And yet, doesn't this mirror our own struggles today? Maybe you've been passed over for opportunities because of favoritism. Maybe someone lied about you, damaging your reputation. Maybe your kindness was exploited and your patience mocked. The pain of injustice cuts deep. It makes us question the fairness of life itself. But the hidden hope buried in Yusuf's prison walls is that no injustice is unseen by Allah. Your sabr is never wasted. Your tears are never forgotten. Your story does not end with oppression. It ends with Allah's justice, whether in this life or the next. But let me challenge you with a question. Do you really believe patience is weakness? Or is patience the greatest form of strength? Because it demands you trust in Allah when everything around you says give up. Society teaches us to fight back immediately, to seek revenge at any cost. The Qur'an teaches us that sometimes true power lies in restraint, in holding on to faith when retaliation would destroy your soul. And I want you to be brave right now. Write in the comments, I trust Allah's justice even when people are unjust. Let that be your public stand against despair. And if this message resonated in your heart, leave a like on this video as a form of sadaqah jariyah, because your small action might be the means for someone else lost in hopelessness to find light again. Share this with someone you know who feels crushed under unfairness. You might be the reason their faith is restored. And if your heart longs for more reminders like this, subscribe and walk with us on this journey of hidden hope together. Close your eyes and picture Yusuf years later, walking out of the same land that once imprisoned him, but this time as a man of authority, dignity, and honor. The same people who mocked him now bowed in respect. What changed? Not the world. His patience, his fear of Allah, his refusal to let injustice define him. That is the unseen power of sabr. It rewrites the ending. And here's the disruptive truth. The prison of injustice you feel today may be the preparation for the throne of honor tomorrow. The betrayal that breaks you now may be the very key to doors you never imagined. But even if the world never apologizes, never acknowledges your pain, never restores your rights, Allah has already written a reward for every ounce of your patience. So, the next time you face unfairness, remember Yusuf. Remember that Allah's timing is never late, that every injustice is a test, and that every act of patience plants a seed for a harvest you cannot yet see. Justice in this life is uncertain. Justice with Allah is guaranteed. But this is not the end of the hidden treasures within the Qur'an. If injustice teaches us patience, what about pain that comes not from people but from our own bodies? What about the illness that lingers, the weakness that drains, the suffering that feels endless? Could it be that Allah preserved another story, one of resilience, worship and mercy, that speaks directly to those who feel imprisoned, not by chains but by their own flesh? Ayub sits alone, his body weak, his skin burning with sores, his health gone, his wealth taken, his children buried. Imagine that silence in his home, once filled with laughter and provision, now echoing only with pain. Day after day, his suffering deepens. People whisper that he must have done something wrong, that such calamity is surely a punishment. Even his closest ones grow weary of his illness. Yet in that broken state, Ayub does not curse, does not despair, does not abandon Allah. Instead, his lips release a whisper of faith that still echoes today. Indeed, adversity has touched me, and you are the most merciful of the merciful. Surah Al-Anbiya 21:83. Notice the beauty. He acknowledges his pain, but he never forgets the mercy of Allah. He does not say, "Why me?" He says, "Ya Allah, you are the most merciful." How many of us crumble under much lighter tests? A flu keeps us from praying, a headache makes us irritable, a financial setback convinces us Allah has abandoned us. But Ayub endured years of pain without losing his devotion. This is the hidden treasure in his story. Pain is not proof of Allah's anger. Pain can be proof of His love, a means of purification, a ladder to higher ranks in Jannah. Think of your own life. Maybe you live with chronic illness, a body that doesn't function like it used to. Maybe you battle fatigue, sleepless nights and treatments that drain your spirit. Maybe you feel useless, a burden on others, invisible in your suffering. The world might not see the weight you carry, but Allah does. Every tear you wipe in silence, every groan you swallow, every prayer whispered through exhaustion is written with precision. Nothing is wasted. The hope hidden in the Qur'an is that Allah transforms every ache into forgiveness, every sigh into elevation, every hardship into mercy. But let me ask you, do you truly believe suffering means Allah is displeased with you? Or is it that your suffering is actually proof that He has chosen you for something greater? Ayub's story shatters the false belief that trials are only punishments. They can be gifts, though wrapped in pain. The Qur'an is showing us that patience is not passive resignation, it is active worship. To say, "I still trust you, Allah," when your body betrays you, when medicine fails you, when people pity you, is an act of ibadah more powerful than any comfort. Close your eyes for a moment. Picture Ayub, his hands trembling, body frail, lips dry, yet his heart steady in remembrance of Allah. Then imagine the moment when Allah, in His mercy, restored his health, his family, his wealth, greater than before. That's the mercy that awaits the believer. It might come in this life, it might come in the next, but it is guaranteed. And here is something many won't tell you. Your illness may be the very means Allah uses to raise you higher than those who worship in ease. Your bed may be your prayer mat, your sighs may be your dhikr, your patience may be your jihad. The hidden hope is that Allah is closer to you in weakness than He ever was in your strength. Now pause and reflect. Is your pain breaking you, or is it building you? Is it pushing you away from Allah, or is it pulling you closer to Him? The answer lies in your heart. Declare it with courage in the comments. My pain will not distance me from Allah. I choose patience and trust in His mercy. Let this be your shield against despair. Your words might ignite someone else's faith who feels crushed under the same weight. And remember, if this message touched your soul, subscribing is not just following a channel. It's committing to walk this path of hidden hope together step by step. But the journey of the Qur'an doesn't stop at illness. What about the ache of the soul, not the body? That hollow emptiness when you feel far from Allah, when worship feels heavy, when your iman feels dim and cold. Could it be that Allah, in His wisdom, preserved a story of young believers who once felt isolated, cut off and hidden, yet were never forgotten by Him? What happens when the heart itself feels like a cave? Imagine a group of young men, their hearts trembling but firm in faith, standing before a society that demanded they abandon belief in Allah. The pressure was immense: power, culture, and the majority told them to bow to false gods. Yet, they chose exile over betrayal. They walked away from their families, their comfort, their very lives, to preserve what mattered most: their iman. The Qur'an paints the scene of these youths retreating into a cave, a place of isolation, darkness, and silence. From the outside, it looked like defeat. From the inside, it was the beginning of a miracle. Allah says, "And we turned them to the right and to the left, while their dog stretched his forelegs at the entrance." Surah Al-Kahf 18:18. In their sleep, in Gai, their stillness, in what seemed like abandonment, Allah was guarding them. Have you ever felt that same distance, that heavy emptiness when salah feels dry, when dua feels unanswered, when the Qur'an feels like mere words instead of light? Spiritual disconnection is one of the most painful tests, not visible to others, but burning silently inside. It feels like being trapped in a cave of your own heart, with no way out, and people around you might say, "You're just being lazy," or "Your iman is weak." But what if disconnection is not proof that Allah has left you? What if, like the people of the cave, your stillness is the place where Allah is protecting your faith until He wakes it again? Think about it. Those youths weren't actively fighting battles or preaching in the streets when Allah preserved them. They were asleep, yet even in their incapacity, He guarded their iman. Isn't that a breathtaking hope? That even when you feel too weak to worship as you should, Allah hasn't abandoned you. That even when you feel cold inside, He is still turning your heart, protecting it from collapsing completely. But here's the question that cuts deep. Do you believe Allah only loves you when your faith is strong? Or do you believe His mercy covers you even in your weakest moments? Many people think iman is a straight line, always rising, always shining. But the Qur'an shows us faith can ebb and flow, and Allah is merciful through it all. Your distance does not cancel His nearness. Your silence does not mute His hearing. Your weakness does not repel His love. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine being one of those youths in the cave. You went in thinking it might be the end, but Allah made it a beginning. You thought you would die in fear, but you woke up generations later as a sign of His mercy. What if your own cave of disconnection is not the end, but the preparation for your return to Him? What if Allah is preserving you right now, even in your struggle, because He knows the flame of your iman will reignite stronger than before? Write this in the comments as your stand of faith. Even in my weakness, Allah is guarding my heart. Let it be your declaration that your iman is not gone, only resting, waiting for His mercy to awaken it. By putting it in words, you are refusing the whisper that says you are lost forever. You are saying you still belong to Him. And here's the disruptive truth. Feeling spiritually disconnected is not always failure. Sometimes it is the very space where Allah is teaching you humility, reminding you that iman is a gift, not a guarantee. It's in the cave that faith is reborn. It's in the cave that Allah proves He has not abandoned you. So the next time your salah feels heavy, your dua feels dry, your Qur'an feels distant, don't surrender to despair. Remember the youths of the cave. Remember that even in stillness, Allah was guarding them. Remember that your cave can become your protection. Your stillness can become your shield. Your weakness can become the ground where Allah plants renewal. But what about when the cave is not spiritual, but eternal? When the body is lowered into the grave and the fear of death grips the heart? That is another ache the Qur'an addresses. And the hidden hope in that story might challenge everything you believe about the end of life itself. Ibrahim, the close friend of Allah, was a prophet known for his courage in the face of kings and nations that mocked his faith. Yet even he, at a certain moment, sought a sign that would bring absolute peace to his heart. He turned to Allah and asked, "My Lord, show me how you give life to the dead." Surah Al-Baqarah 2260. It wasn't disbelief, it was a profound plea for reassurance, because even the strongest hearts feel the weight of uncertainty when confronting the unknown. In His infinite mercy, Allah did not just answer, He gave Ibrahim an experience that would echo through generations. He commanded him to take 4 birds, cut them into pieces, place each part on different hills and then call them by name. And before his very eyes, each fragment returned, each piece reassembled, each feather restored, until the birds came back to life and flew toward him. Imagine the impact of that moment. It wasn't just a lesson about life and death, but about absolute trust that Allah has power over everything, including what terrifies human beings the most, the end of existence. The fear of death is perhaps one of the most universal pains. The heart races just at the thought, what if I'm not ready? What if the grave is only darkness? What if I never see the ones I love again? Anxiety about the unknown gnaws at the soul. Some try to ignore it, others laugh to hide the terror. But in the silence of the night, the mind insists on asking, what comes after the last breath? This fear is not new. Even Ibrahim, a chosen prophet, asked for proof to soothe his heart. And if he sought reassurance, why should you? Feel guilty for needing comfort too. Here lies a hidden truth few people speak about. The Qur'an does not ridicule the fear of death. On the contrary, it acknowledges it as part of the human experience and offers answers that are not only logical, but deeply emotional. The message is clear. Death is not an abyss of nothingness. It is a doorway to Allah's mercy. If you have Iman, if you cling to hope in Him, death stops being an end and becomes a reunion. But the question that needs to echo inside you is this: do you really believe that Allah, who created you with such care, would abandon you to nothingness after death? Imagine the relief Ibrahim felt when he saw with his own eyes that what seemed irreversible, death, was reversed by Allah's command in an instant. That is what the Qur'an does. It shows us that what is impossible for us is effortless for the one who says, kun fayakun, be, and it is. So when you feel paralyzed by the fear of the grave, remember, Allah has already given signs that He does not abandon His servants, not even in the moment when everyone else must leave them. If this message is touching your heart, press like as an act of faith and share this video with someone who also fears death. Your gesture may be the means of spreading hope and remembrance of Allah to other anxious hearts. And more. Write in the comments your declaration of faith. I trust that death is only the beginning of Allah's mercy. Do not write this as just a nice phrase, but as a public testimony that you refuse to keep living enslaved by fear. This is your chance to turn fear into trust. Now take a deep breath. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine calling your own doubts the way Ibrahim called those birds, and watch each one vanish with the response of Allah. He does not dismiss your search for reassurance. He embraces it and strengthens your heart. The fear of death does not have to be your enemy. It can become a reminder that you are on your way to meeting the one who loves you more than anyone else ever could. But there is an even more silent and crushing pain when you pray, beg, and cry, yet feel like no one is listening. The silence of unanswered du'as can wound deeper than the fear of death itself. And it is exactly there that the Qur'an reveals another hidden hope that few people truly understand. Zakaria was old, his hair white, his body frail, his voice weak with age. For years his du'as rose into the night sky. He wanted a child, not for his ego, not to prove anything to the world, but because his heart longed to see the remembrance of Allah carried on even after he was gone. Yet silence followed every prayer. Imagine his nights, alone, whispering in the dark, "My Lord, grant me from yourself a good offspring. Indeed, you are the hearer of supplication." He prayed when his body was strong. He prayed when his strength faded. He prayed when all logic said it was impossible. And when everyone else would have given up, he whispered again. That is when Allah, in His infinite mercy, responded with a miracle that shattered every law of nature. In Surah Maryam 19:4, Zakaria says, "My Lord, indeed my bones have weakened, and my head has filled with white, and never have I been unblessed in my supplication to you, my Lord." He did not let silence convince him of abandonment. He believed that Allah hears, even when the world is deaf to your pain. And Allah answered. He granted him Yahya, a son, against every human possibility. This is where so many of us struggle. Unanswered prayers. You beg, you cry, you plead. You ask for healing, for provision, for guidance. You pour your soul into dua until your eyes are sore from tears. But the world around you doesn't change. Days, months, even years pass, and it feels like your words hit a ceiling and fall back down. The heart whispers, "Has Allah forgotten me? Is my dua too small, too unworthy, too late?" But here lies a hope hidden deep within the Qur'an. Allah never ignores a dua. Silence is not absence. Delay is not rejection. Every prayer is heard, stored, and answered, but in the way and time that is best for you, not the way your limited vision demands. Think about Zakaria. From a worldly perspective, his dua was too late. His body had failed, his wife was barren, time had closed the door. Yet that is the exact moment Allah chose to open a new chapter. Why? To teach us that it is not your age, not your circumstance, not your weakness. That determines the outcome. It is Allah's qadr. The waiting itself is an act of worship, a test of sabr, a purification of the heart. And when the response finally comes, it carries a sweetness far greater than if it had been given instantly. So ask yourself, have you ever stopped making dua because you thought Allah wasn't listening? Did you ever let despair silence your tongue? This is where you need to confront a dangerous belief. Many people think that silence means rejection, but isn't it possible that Allah is delaying because He wants to give you something better than you asked for? Or that He is protecting you from a disaster you cannot see? Or that He loves to hear your voice in the night, your heart raw and open in sujood? Would you dare to believe that unanswered duas may actually be answered in ways you haven't recognized yet? Take a deep breath, close your eyes. Imagine all your prayers like seeds buried in the earth. For months, nothing seems to happen. You water them with tears, but the soil looks the same, yet beneath the surface roots are growing unseen. Then one day, without warning, the first sprout breaks through. That is how duas work. Just because you don't see movement doesn't mean Allah isn't shaping your destiny in ways you cannot yet perceive. I want you to write in the comments, I trust Allah's timing, even when I don't understand it. Declare it openly, not just as words, but as a stand of faith. When you do, you're breaking the chain of despair that whispers you are forgotten. You are reminding yourself and everyone who reads it that you belong to a Lord who has never turned away a sincere servant. You must also reflect on this. People often say, if your prayer isn't answered, maybe it's because you don't deserve it. But what if that's completely wrong? What if the truth is that Allah delays because He wants you to draw nearer to Him in the waiting? What if He withholds to give you more than you ever imagined? Would you still see silence as punishment, or would you finally see it as mercy in disguise? The hidden hope here is this: every dua, no matter how small, is accounted for. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, taught that Allah responds to every prayer in one of three ways. He gives you what you asked, He removes a calamity that would have struck you, or He saves it for you in the hereafter, where the reward will make you wish none of your duas had been answered in this world. Imagine that. Every whisper you've ever made has already been stored in the treasury of Allah's mercy. Zachariah's story isn't just about an old man who received a child. It is about you. It is about every tear you've cried, every hand you've raised, every word you've spoken when no one else was listening. The world may ignore you. People may dismiss you. But Allah, He never turns away. Not once. So the next time you stand in prayer and feel that sting of doubt, remember Zachariah. Remember that even when his bones weakened and his hair turned white, his heart still believed. And Allah honored that faith with a miracle. Do not let despair convince you that your duas are wasted. They are not. They are building something unseen, something eternal. Write it below. I refuse to give up on my duas. Let it be your act of defiance against despair, your testimony of faith, your declaration that you trust Allah's qadr over your own limited understanding. And here's the final reflection I want to leave in your heart. Maybe the greatest answer to your dua is not the thing you asked for, but the transformation happening within you while you wait. Maybe Allah wants to shape you, strengthen you, and purify you before handing you what you seek. Because sometimes the gift isn't the child or the job or the healing. Sometimes the gift is the closeness you found to Allah in the silence. But this isn't the end, because if Allah can turn silence into miracles, what other hidden promises lie waiting in His words? The Qur'an is not finished revealing its hope. There are truths in its verses that will continue to shake your heart, if only you stay long enough to hear them. You've carried this journey with me from the first word until this moment, and that alone is proof that Allah chose your heart to receive this reminder. Every story we shared, Musa at the sea, Yunus in the belly of the whale, Maryam under the palm tree, Yaqub crying for Yusuf, Yusuf in prison, Ayub in pain, Ibrahim seeking reassurance, Zachariah praying in old age. Each one was not just a story of the past. It was Allah speaking directly to you, showing you that every moment of anxiety, guilt, loneliness, illness, injustice, or unanswered prayer has already been lived, and Allah has already revealed the hidden hope within it. The Quran is not a book of old tales. It is alive. It is the rope of Allah that pulls you out of despair and sets your heart free. Right now, pause. Let yourself feel it. The weight you've been carrying doesn't have to define you. You are not abandoned. You are not forgotten. You are not too broken, too sinful, too late. Allah's mercy is wider than your fears, deeper than your pain, and closer to you than your own veins. If you felt even a spark of relief in these stories, know this: It wasn't me who spoke to you. It was Allah calling you back to Him through His words. So let us close this moment together in the most powerful way, with dua. Before we begin, prepare your heart. Take a deep breath, lift your hands, close your eyes if you can. Imagine yourself standing before Allah, the one who split the sea for Musa, who saved Yunus from the depths, who restored Yaqub's family, who gave Zakaria a child when it seemed impossible. That same Allah is listening to you right now. Ya Allah, we turn to you with hearts heavy yet hopeful. Remove from us the anxiety that steals our sleep and the fears that cripple our souls. Replace them with sabr, that is unshakable, and tawakkul, that never wavers. Heal the broken among us, forgive the guilty among us, strengthen the weak among us. Ya Rahman, pour your mercy into every heart watching this, so that despair is replaced with hope and sorrow with peace. Ya Allah, make the Qur'an the light of our chests, the healer of our wounds, the guide for our steps. Protect us from hopelessness and remind us that with you, nothing is ever lost. If you whispered this dua with me, believe it, you have been heard. If you made it to this point in the video, it is because Allah is already working in your heart and responding to your call. Now I want you to take one more step of faith. Write in the comments, I trust in Allah. Let it be your public declaration of hope, your act of iman that tells the world you refuse to let fear silence your faith. And don't keep this light only for yourself. Share this video with someone who is struggling. It might be the reminder that saves them, and it could become your sadaqah jariyah, a continuous charity that keeps blessing you even after you leave this world. And if this message touched you, don't walk away. Stay with us. Subscribe to this channel, because here you will always find reminders from the Qur'an, hope for your heart, and the strength to keep walking the path of iman. Your interaction isn't just support for this channel, it is a way to spread the words of Allah to countless others. And before you leave, let me tell you this. If what you discovered in this video opened your heart, the next video waiting on your screen may change your life even more. Don't skip it. What comes next could be the exact answer you've been asking Allah for in your du'as. Indeed, with hardship comes ease. Surah Ash-Shah 94:6. So take this verse as your closing gift, a promise from Allah Himself that your pain will not last forever and your hope is never in vain.